Hello friends, I'm Stacy with Crochet Kitten, and today we're going to talk about Woobles. What are they? Are they worth it? And what are some alternatives? So if you have had any interest in crocheting in the last few years, you've probably heard about Woobles. I think people who haven't had any interest in crochet at all have heard about Woobles by now, but what it is there are these kits, and they come with everything that you need to create one pattern. And what's really fun about them is they're designed for beginners, people who've never crocheted at all before, because as you can see, not only does it come with all of the materials, it actually comes with your first project already started. So a lot of times when you're learning how to crochet, getting the start is the hardest part. So let's take a look at what's in here. So we've got our yarn there, and this is really fun. So I got one of the sponsored kits. So this is sponsored by the makers of Pac-Man. So it comes with this special edition crochet hook with all the little ghost guys on there. You got your yarn for the inside of his mouth there. And then you got our stuffing. And yellow yarn. And then this little envelope has all of the what we call notions. So we've got our yarn needle there. We've got our safety eyes, and they're just the right shape. You don't have to go hunting down the exact right kind of thing. And it even comes, oh, this one doesn't. The other kit I had even came with some little stitch markers so that you don't lose your place. Now, I say that these come with all of the supplies you need. It does not come with printed instructions. So what it does have is a little QR code you can scan, and that will take you to tutorial videos to walk you through every single step to make your project. And also at that QR code is a link. So if you do know how to read crochet patterns, there'll be a link for a downloadable pattern that you can print out. And the reason I mentioned that it doesn't come with a printed pattern, so I made these projects. My family's on a month-long camp out right now, and I thought that'll be a great time for me to check out these Woobles because it says all materials included. Well, I didn't have Wi-Fi at the campground when I was making this little guy, and I didn't realize until after we got there that it didn't come with printed instructions. So I didn't get to start working on this little guy as soon as I wanted to, just because of the Wi-Fi issue. So if you're planning on taking one of these kits somewhere where the Wi-Fi or the cell signal is going to be a little bit iffy, just do yourself a favor and open it before you go, download that pattern, print it out, and that way you can work on this on the go. All right, but other than that, everything is included. So again, the stuffing to stuff him and the yarn here. Now, oh, here's my stitch markers. They're in here. Okay, that's right. Because the stitch markers is what's holding my started piece together. So like I said, starting your project is always the hardest part, and Woobles is already taking care of that for you. Now, when I learned how to crochet back in the dark ages, I was about 12 years old. My aunt handed me a hook and some yarn, and she basically said, do the chain stitch until you puke. So chain stitches are what starts every single crochet projects. Of course, now some very creative folks have figured out how to start projects without chain stitches. But usually most projects start with a chain stitch. So when I learned how to crochet, it was chain, chain, chain until you puke. And then once I got the hang of that, it was great. Now you can start on single crochet, and you're going to do that until you puke. So I made a lot of scarves, single crochet scarves, double crochet scarves, and I still to this day think that's one of the best ways to learn how to crochet. because you get a lot of practice doing the same stitch over and over, and it helps you to make your gauge more uniform. You just get really good at it. You get the muscle memory making scarves. That said, I still think this is a really good way to learn how to crochet. So what got me interested in the Woobles, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she has a friend she has a couple of friends actually who got into crochet with Woobles, and that's all they do is the Woobles now. Now, I'm not knocking that. I think that's great that the next generation is excited about crochet. I love that there is something that has gotten young people excited about crochet. That said, if you're going to limit yourself to Woobles, you're going to limit the amount of things that you create. So I love this Pac-Man set. I made a little ghost. Obviously, I'm going to start my little Pac-Man next. I also have a 7-year-old daughter. She is begging me to let her do Woobles. I'm like, you know, I am a crochet designer. We don't need to get the Woobles for me to teach you how to crochet. But again, this has gotten so many young people excited about crochet, and I love that. So I got her this little cherry set. We're going to start with that and see how she likes it. But again, it's a little bit limiting. So once you get into the Woobles and you've made your fill of like every character you could ever dream of, I want to encourage you to branch out from this. So how do you go from the Woobles kit to making, let's say, something that Woobles doesn't have a pattern for? Like, you want to make a kitty cat, or you want to make a character from your favorite YouTube show. My daughter's really into BFDI. I doubt they're going to be partnering with Woobles anytime soon, but those characters really lend themselves well to crocheting. So how can you move on from these pre-packaged kits to making anything you could possibly dream of? And that's what I want to introduce you to, is Lion Brand's Lazy Day yarns. And the reason I think this is a nice next step from the Woobles is it's a very similar kind of yarn. So if we kind of look closely at the yarn here, let me see if I can go in a little bit better. There we go. So you'll see it's a little bit different yarn than we're used to seeing. Most yarns we see have this like twist to it. The fibers are twisted together, and this one is different. It's what we call a chainette yarn. And what makes this nice for beginners is one common issue with the twisted yarns is sometimes your crochet hook will split it and go inside the yarn. And that makes for a bit of a sloppy crochet project. Sometimes your hook will get stuck in it that way when you're still learning. But this chainette yarn, the reason Woobles chose this kind of yarn is your hook can't go in like that. So Lion Brand's Lazy Days is that same kind of yarn. See, if we look closely, it's that chainette yarn. And I just want to say, again, not knocking Woobles. I love that they've gotten kids excited about crocheting. But one comment that I had from both my husband and my older daughter is the texture of this yarn. It kind of feels like paracord. If you've ever done any paracord crafts or spent a lot of time outdoors, it's a little bit thicker. It's not as tough as paracord, but it is thicker. Compared to the Lazy Days yarn, it's softer, and it feels more like a traditional yarn. So it kind of is a good bridge from the Woobles yarn to more traditional yarns, because it's still that chainette, but it feels more like a traditional yarn. And let me show you. All right, so you've got your crochet hook from Woobles. You've got your stitch markers. You've got your needle. You can use these for any project. You know, they're not disposable. They're like, this is a really well-made hook, actually. And then the reason I want to encourage you to branch out to other yarns or other projects from Woobles is because you can, like, the sky's the limit on what you can do. So Lazy Days comes in a ton of different colors, but also Lion Brand has their own like free patterns that you can use with Lazy Days. You go onto their website and you'll search. You can narrow down the pattern search by yarn thickness. So this is labeled a 4. If you don't know what that means this is a worsted weight yarn. This is like what most people think of when they think of yarn. So you can narrow their pattern search down by what weight of yarn it is. You can narrow it down by what type of project you're looking for. If you want to branch into wearables, or if you just want to stick with the amigurumis for the moment. So this is their Salvador snake pattern. Isn't he cute? And I've recently started moving away from the safety eyes to doing embroidered or French knot eyes, just because I don't like to have a lot of things on hand. You know, I like to keep things simple. This is Lion Brand's Philippa Fox pattern. My older daughter requested this one. And if you go on their website, you'll see that these guys were in different colors in the pattern that Lion Brand published. But since I am not working from a kit, I can customize the colors and even the types of yarn. And just briefly, I wanted to, since we were looking at this label before, Lazy Days is polyester. Now, normally I'm a big proponent for natural materials. I like to work with cotton and wool. I believe the Woobles yarn is also acrylic. But that said, these synthetic yarns, they really have their place, especially for toys that you're going to make for kids. That's just so much easier to clean them. They're softer and they're really nice for amigurumi patterns. So I want to show you a preview. So I've got my Philippa Fox. I've got my Salvatore snake. What do y'all think of this guy? It's not done yet. This is part of a new pattern collection that I'm working on, which will also feature Lazy Day yarns. And again, we're still on our camp out. My sister was watching me make this and we were kind of laughing at it because before I added his little limbs, I thought he kind of looks like a plague doctor. And my sister thought he looked like a penguin or something. And then now that I've added some ears and some limbs, I think he kind of looks like a little piggy. So what do you think? Tell me in the comments what you think he is. And if you tune in next week, I'm going to show you what even is the next step. So after you've learned to crochet from your kit, you've started working with other people's patterns, what's the next step after that? Well, that would be designing your own amigurumi. So if you tune in next week, I'm going to show you my magic amigurumi recipe, and that will help you make basically any amigurumi that you want, at least a starting point. It will give you a good beginner's starting point for designing your own amigurumi. Thank you to Lion Brand for sending me Lazy Days to review, and tune in next week where we will start to learn how to design our own amigurumis.